Hey guys, this is Mr. H. Hey, I wanted to go over how to find the domain and range of a function when you're given a graph. And the idea that I'm going to use is vertical and horizontal lines. So you're gonna need a ruler in order to follow along with me. All right, so whenever you're given a graph like this, the very first thing I like to do is I like to find out, is this a function? And the way that you should do this is we're just going to use a vertical line test. Now, what I'm going to use is I'm going to use an actual vertical line. You guys use your ruler, but follow along with me. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to go from left to right. And if I hit this graph more than once, that means it's not a function. So I only hit it once. So that means that it is a function. Now, the same test that I used to test whether it was a function, I can use that to find the domain. So I'm going to start right here, and I'm going to put my first vertical line because that means that that's where we're starting. And as I move this vertical line from left to right, every time I hit the graph, that represents an input that should be included in the domain. So I keep going all the way over till I get to this number right here, and that's going to be 6, and then I stop. So then all I have to do is just pay attention. So my input, my lowest input is going to be a -7. My highest input is going to be 6. And if I were writing the domain, I would say it goes from a -7 to a +6. Now, because this is a closed circle, I would use a bracket. Because this is an open circle, I'm going to use parentheses. If I were writing this in inequality notation, I would say x has to be greater than or equal to a -7, but less than a +6. That's how you would do it. Now, you should be using a ruler. Now, I'm going to erase this. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a horizontal line. So what you're going to do is you're just going to change your ruler, and you're going to make it horizontal. And I'm going to use this horizontal line. Remember, outputs are horizontal lines. Inputs are vertical lines. Outputs are horizontal lines. So I'm going to start at the very bottom, and I'm going to copy my first horizontal line. Well, I'm going to try to copy that. Let me see if I can get this to go. All right, so now that's where I start. And again, every time I move this horizontal line, every time I touch the graph, that represents an output that should be included in the range. So as I move up, you can see all of these numbers should be included in our range, all the way up to 11. And when I get there, that's where I end. So we got the minimum is going to be a -11. The maximum is going to be a +11. So if I'm writing the interval notation, I would go from a -11 to a +11 because there's an open circle or closed circle there. I'm going to use a bracket. Because there's an open circle here, I'm going to use a parentheses on the 11. If I were writing this in interval or inequality notation, I would say y has to be greater than or equal to a -11, but less than 11. That would be how you would write it. Okay, let's go to another one. Now this one is discontinuous. And the reason I know that is I jump from here down to here, excuse me, and then I jump from here up to here. So this is a discontinuous function. Now, how do I know it's a function? Again, I would use the vertical line test. So let me do that again. So I'm going to copy this. Come on, Greg. Copy this right here. And I'm going to go and start here. That's where my graph begins, and that's where my input is going to begin. So I'm going to copy an output line there, and then I'm going to keep moving until I'm no longer touching any part of the graph. And you can see that I'm touching, as I move this vertical line, I am touching the graph in one place. So all of those are inputs that should be included in my domain, all the way over to here. When I get to 5, that's going to be my highest input. And again, I'm just going to write that now. So this will be a -4 to a +5. So my domain is going to go from a -4 to a +5. This is going to be a parentheses because there's an open circle there. This is going to be a bracket because there's a closed circle there. And that's how you would write the domain for this function. Okay, now let me erase this, and we're going to do the same thing for the range. So we're going to copy this horizontal line, and we're going to figure out where all of the outputs are. So I'm going to move this horizontal line up to the very first output place, which would be right here. And then I'm going to copy it. And then I'm going to keep moving until I get to the next output, which is right here. And then I'm going to copy it. And then I'm going to move it again until I get to the final output, which is going to be here. So I've got, it's going to be a -2 here. It's going to be a +1 and 3. So if I were writing the range, that would be what I would include. It would have a -2 for the output, 1 as an output, and 3 as an output. There are no more outputs other than those 3. So that's how I would write the output for that. All right. Now I got one more. Now this is another discontinuous function. You can see I'm jumping from here over to here, and then I jump from here down to here. So you can see it's discontinuous. So that means that there's going to be, it's going to impact my intervals somehow. So and how? Let's see. Very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the vertical line test, which is right here. So I'm going to copy this vertical line, this red vertical line. I'm going to start here. As you can see, as I move across, I only hit the graph in one place. Even here, it's only hitting in one place. I go all the way over here. Now to find the domain, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to start right here. This is where my interval is going to start. I'm going to copy a vertical line there. I'm going to go all the way over until I'm no longer touching the graph. Now, I'm not touching the graph in here, so I should stop. My interval is going to stop here. Okay? Now, because these numbers in here should not be included, I'm going to go until I hit the graph again, and this is where I'm going to start my new interval. Let me copy that again. I didn't mean to end it there. So I'm going to copy there, and now I'm going to keep tracing every time this vertical line hits the graph. That's a number that's going to be included into my interval. So I go all the way over here, and that's going to be the end. That's the highest input. And so now all I'm going to do is go back, and I'm going to label all of my inputs. It starts at a -8, and then it ends at a -5. And then it starts back up at a -3, and it goes all the way over to a +5. So if I were writing this in interval notation, I would say domain. It starts at a -8, and it goes to a -5. And because this is an open circle, I'm going to use a parentheses. Because this is a closed circle, I'm going to use a bracket. And then I jump to a -3 to start my new interval, and I go all the way over to a +5. So this should be a bracket because of the -3 has a closed circle, and this should also be a bracket on the 5. Now the only thing that I need to do is and I'm going to squeeze this in because I didn't leave enough room, I'm going to put a U in between there. So that's saying these two intervals combined make up the domain. And that's how you would do it. And the reason we need that U is because it's discontinuous right in here. I hope that makes sense. So now, last thing, we're going to do the range. And again, I am going to use a horizontal line. So let me go. I'm going to start here. I'm going to oops. I'm going to start here, and let me copy this horizontal line. Remember, horizontal lines are output lines, so that's where my output starts. Let me copy that. And then I'm going to move this horizontal line all the way up until I no longer touch the graph. And you can see I keep moving it, I keep moving it because I'm always touching the graph in at least one spot. And I keep moving it until I get all the way up to the output line of 8. And that's where I would end it. So the the output for this range would be, we start at a -8 and we go up to a +8. Now, so if we were writing the range, we would say from a -8 to a +8. Because this is an open circle, we would use a parentheses. Because this is an open circle, we would also use a parentheses. That would be our range from a negative 8 to 8. Now, I'm using vertical and horizontal lines. You should use a ruler and move the ruler from left to right to find the inputs, move the ruler from bottom to top to find the range. But if you understand that idea, it makes it so much easier to find the domain and range. I hope this has been helpful.